When it comes to real life, being a jerk doesn't pay. Yes, you may get your way a little more often, but it comes at the cost of alienating yourself from others. Who's going to want to be friends with someone who talks down to them? Who's going to come to your birthday party if you push everyone around all the time? And after you spent so long baking that cake and putting up decorations, just don't risk it. Be nice, for goodness sake. Despite the fact that games are categorically not real life, many of us simply cannot bring ourselves to be a big old meanie to the walking, talking collections of polygons and pixels we see on screen. It's the developer's fault, gosh darn it. Why do you have to make them seem so real? Well, to those players whose two shoes are 100% goody, I only have one thing to say. You're missing out. When it comes to video games, being a dick is not only cathartic, but sometimes incredibly rewarding. With that in mind, I'm the despicable Ben from TripleJump, and here are 10 games that reward players for being total jerks. Number 10. Fallout 4. In an irradiated wasteland of a world where murder and mayhem reign supreme, it should come as no surprise that there are plenty of jerks in the Fallout series. From bandits to Roman legionary cosplayers, crackpot scientists to motel operators who'll happily sell their neighbors to slavers, sometimes it seems only the very worst of humanity survived the apocalypse. And, depending on how you choose to play, the very worst of the worst might be you. While the odd choice to truncate dialogue options might lead players to accidentally coming across as a jerk, Fallout 4 grants truly chaotic players ample opportunity to be as mean and spiteful as they please. While shooting everyone and stealing everything not nailed down can be its own reward, jerky dialogue options can open up paths and perks that you never knew existed. For example, if players choose the most overly aggressive and hostile dialogue options when talking with leader of the Pack, Mason, at Nuka World, he will respect their gutsy approach enough to reward them with the Problem Solver, a unique rifle that does increased damage on each consecutive hit on the same target. Just remember, Nick Valentine won't like that though, and you'll have to be a real jerk to break that guy's mechanical heart. Number 9. Red Dead Redemption 2. While he is a member of a cutthroat gang of outlaws, Arthur Morgan just doesn't come off as much of an evil jerk, especially if you let him grow out that beard. Look at him, just like a big cuddly teddy bear. Oh. Now don't get me wrong, he certainly was a jerk in the past and still is in many early missions, so if players want to completely sidestep that whole redemption thing the story was going for and continue Arthur's gunslinging ways, there's nothing stopping them. Shooting folks hats off their head and stealing horses is all well and good, but the best way to be a jerk is with the world-changing antagonize button. Calling a random NPC still ugly at 20 paces or telling them that they remind you of the last time you lifted your horse's tail never gets old. While the chaos that ensues is often its own reward, there are some tangible goodies too. Players with low honor will unlock a nifty ebony handle for their cattleman revolver and will find more valuables on dead bodies. Avoiding NPCs trying to flag you down on the roadside can even unexpectedly save your life, as some helpless women are secretly setting you up for an ambush. Good guys will get shot, while jerks will breeze right on past. Number 8. Mass Effect 2. Commander Shepard, war hero, respected leader, first human Spectre, and the galaxy's biggest jerk. In the Mass Effect series, players are given the option to become the perfect exemplar of peace and prosperity or show the universe what humanity is really like by sarcastically putting aliens in their place, or punching reporters in the face. While you could be a cynical so-and-so in the first game, the second added interrupt prompts and took being a jerk to the next level. These prompts flash up on screen during important cutscenes, and players who give in to their evil side or compulsion to hit anything that flashes will be rewarded with some truly unforgettable displays of jerkiness. This includes smashing art, punching a lot of people, and pushing someone through a window. But they can also reward the player practically. For example, during the Archangel mission, you have the option to electrocute an engineer working on a gunship with one of his own tools. Doing so will see his repairs go unfinished, and the gunship will have less health when you fight it later. Seeing as playing a renegade has events play out almost identically as playing a paragon, there's no reason not to be a jerk. You can still get that alien's number, promise. Number 7. Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back. Even though he's about as late 90s a mascot as you can get with his 3/4 length jeans, fingerless gloves, wild mohawk and an attitude to match, Crash Bandicoot really isn't that much of a jerk. Yes, he belches constantly and often scratches himself in places he shouldn't, but he's a nice guy. He wants nothing more than to save his friends, beat the bad guys, and have fun while doing it. So it may come as a surprise that you can choose to be a heartless jerk in Crash Bandicoot 2 and be rewarded for it. Polar is an adorable little wild wide-eyed polar bear cub who helps Crash get through snowy levels by letting him ride over obstacles on his back. He's so cute and friendly, in fact, that Crash even adopts him as a pet. However, if players load up the Arctic Warp Room, see Polar waiting for them in the corner, and decide they want to jump up and down on his head, the game will let them. Not only that, but it will also reward their act of animal cruelty with extra lives, up to 10 of them depending on how many times they squash the poor bear's fuzzy head. Hope you enjoy those extra lives, you monster. Number 6. Untitled Goose Game. Geese are jerks. You know it, I know it, everyone knows it, but none know it better than developers House. If you ever wanted to steal sandwiches from picnic baskets, irritate gardeners with incessant honking, and scare small children, then Untitled Goose Game lets you live out your deepest fantasies, you strange person, you. As the name suggests, this game puts players into the webbed feet of a particularly annoying goose and sets them free in a quiet English countryside village to wreak havoc and generally cause as much disruption as possible. Unlike in other games, our little antisocial avian anti-hero doesn't deal in violence, and that just makes his rebellious antics all the funnier. Throwing people's clothes into ponds, trapping them in their homes, and stealing a little kid's glasses would come across as awful if anyone other than a cartoonishly silly goose did it, but here, it's hilarious. There are no standout moments of jerkitude to speak of, as literally every objective in the game revolves around causing as much mischief as physically possible. However, people who complete every single item on the to-do list will be rewarded with a little crown to wear, thus pronouncing them king or queen of the jerks. Number 5. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Greater, middling, lesser, the concept of morality and what truly counts as evil is thrown around a lot in The Witcher 3, and considering the fact that most choices players are forced to make, be they subjectively good or evil, don't pan out as expected and can result in some truly unexpected consequences, a purely good or evil playthrough is practically impossible. That doesn't stop you from being a jerk, though. Yes, while most players will play through the game trying to do the right thing and help as many poor souls as they can, what constitutes the right thing can be difficult to gauge. One thing that is always consistent, however, is coin. Taking on contracts posted by the various wounded soldiers, desperate mothers, and starving families out in the wilderness of Velen sees players hunting monsters in exchange for coin. How much coin exactly? Well, that depends on you, dear player. Seeing as this is his trade and sole form of income, Geralt can haggle the prices of most of his contracts, and jerky players are given the option to bleed as much coin as they can from everyone they meet, be they well-off noble or beggar at death's door. Go on, toss a whole heap of coins to this Witcher. Number 4. Chrono Cross. The protagonist of Chrono Cross, Serge, is a true JRPG hero. He's bold and courageous, able to make friends everywhere he goes, and is willing to sacrifice himself to save the universe. In short, he's anything but a jerk. Basically, while the game does present players with a number of choices across their multi-hour campaign, it's almost impossible not to play the hero. Almost, but not quite, because there is one instance where being a jerk really pays off. Once players journey to Guldove, they will be met with a choice: save Kid from a poisoning or leave her to her fate. As Kid is a plucky young thief, the primary heroine of the game and Serge's close friend, it would be very callous indeed not to go out of your way to cure her. However, being a jerk and essentially telling her to deal with it is far more beneficial. Opting not to cure her sends the player down a new path, one which grants them the opportunity to recruit Glenn, an incredibly powerful swordsman who is, by far, the strongest ally in the game. And besides, no matter which route players pick, Kid survives her ordeal and rejoins the party later on, so there really is no excuse not to leave her to suffer. Oh dear. Number 3. Papers, Please. As its drudging opening theme suggests, checking passports and ID cards on the border of a grim totalitarian Eastern Bloc country is a repetitive and thankless task. However, that's exactly what players sign up for when they play Papers, Please and become the border-crossing immigration officer for the glorious country of Arstotzka. Every in-game day, the player is tasked with checking the credentials of everyone trying to cross the border, and every in-game day, the rules for who is, and more importantly, is not allowed through, changes. The more people the player correctly processes, the more money they get to bring home to their starving, freezing family to help pay the rent, buy food, and pay for the heating. However, the game isn't that simple. As the player progresses, they are presented with a multitude of moral quandaries. Should you let in a man who's fleeing persecution in his home country even though he doesn't have a passport? Will you separate a married couple simply because the wife's visa is expired? Up to you, but remember, mistakes like that will cost you. Simply put, if you want to save up enough money for your family and spare yourself a possible trip to the gulag, be a jerk, separate loved ones, and do your job by the book, for the glory of our Stotska. Number 2. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. From Fusro-darring followers off mountaintops to placing buckets over vendors' heads to literally rob them blind, Skyrim is a veritable playground for the jerkiest of jerks, but it's when dealing with the Daedric princes that players can truly tap into their basest desires. Daedric princes are immensely powerful beings who are worshipped as deities by the mortals of Tamriel. While most are morally ambiguous, some are downright evil. Take the quest Bothire's Calling, in which players are asked to sacrifice someone in Bothire's name. Who? Well, any follower they dislike enough. For added jerk points, you can even hire a bodyguard from a tavern, walk them over to the altar, stab them in the back, and then get some sweet armor for your trouble. Then there's Pieces of the Past, which sees players help a historian by reforging the legendary Mehrunes razor. Nice players will hand it over to be locked forever in a museum, while jerks will use it to murder the historian and keep it for themselves. The best part is, this dagger has a chance of insta-killing any enemy, and you'd be a fool not to take it. I'm not entirely sure what the line between jerk and villain is, but I think we're getting rather close. Number 1. Hitman 3. And now we come to Murderous Jerk the Game. Of course, while it's perfectly possible to be 100% professional whilst playing a Hitman game, taking out only your target with a well-placed bullet and walking away completely unnoticed, it's far more fun to mess with everyone. The developers at IO Interactive understand their audience and know that players just love to play with their targets, before taking them out, and as such, the games are overflowing with hilarious ways to get the job done. Disguises are Hitman's bread and butter, and by far the best way for players to make a nuisance of themselves. Be that electrocuting an old lady as a photographer or posing as the deathbed double entendre loving Tobias Reaper, there is every opportunity to bewilder your targets and be rewarded for your efforts. But one of the best comes in Hitman 3's Dubai level. Players who are inclined to be as irritating as possible can follow their target Carl Ingram around his penthouse, turning on vacuums and radios while he tries to work in peace. Annoy him enough and he'll go outside to play golf, and if you've already placed an exploding golf ball down for him, well, the results are spectacular. I suppose you can say he's in 4 or more pieces now. Got him. Thanks for watching.